Hello all, this is Barbara Mann from Your Empowered You, and welcome to our video on creating a strong company culture. So all of us work in an organization where there is some sort of culture. We could work in a smaller company, we could work in a larger organization, and we all know that there is some sort of culture in these organizations. Some of them may be organically grown, where there's nothing really formal in place, and some of us may work in environments where it's very defined. And some of us may work in actually larger organizations where maybe it isn't defined and they want to define it. I've been involved with these kinds of initiatives from the ground up a few times, and I can say they're very, very fun to be a part of. So if you ever have the opportunity to be involved in creating that company culture from the ground up, grab the opportunity. So in this video, we're really going to talk about, what are the key ingredients that are needed from the ground up to create that strong company culture and roll out this initiative, because it's a big initiative, especially if you're rolling it out to thousands and thousands of employees. It really takes a lot. It takes a lot of diverse thought. It takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of thinking about all the materials that you're going to need to modify or update. And it entails a strong implementation plan. That's really important. So the first thing that is important to sort of gather is who's involved in this initiative. It's a very important initiative, and this first step we shouldn't take lightly. So it's important to have a diverse group of people involved in the initial discussions who are going to be there from the ground up and kind of carrying it through. You want to make sure that all departments are represented to make sure there's no unintended consequences and make sure that there's inclusion in there. And you want to make sure that all levels of the organization are involved. So you have your C execs, your directors, your supervisors, your frontline associates. So it's important to have all the levels of the organization represented. And I'm not talking about have everybody in the company involved. I'm talking about identifying those individuals who you think are going to be able to voice their opinions, who are going to be influencers, who may be helping you roll out this initiative to the entire organization. So it's a great development opportunity for folks in your organization at the lower levels to really flex their leadership muscles and be those influencers. So you want to think about, who are those people who are the department leads, who are the sub leads, kind of get a strong group of people who are comfortable in these kinds of meetings, or who you want to give the opportunity to give their opinion in these kinds of meetings. So the person who is leading the project is important as well, that they provide sort of a structure of what this initiative entails. That there's regular meetings, that all voices are going to be heard at all levels, and everything will be considered, that everything is on the table at this point, so that everybody feels comfortable. And it's really important to establish that sort of groundwork right out of the chute, that everybody's voice is important. And it may be that, not everything is included in the final product, but you want to make sure that there's nobody feeling stifled, especially for your frontline associates who may not be used to this kind of important initiative. Okay? So after you've kind of figured out who's involved, you set the groundwork of what this is going to look like. Maybe you have a time frame of when you do the initial discussions to when the rollout will happen. Maybe you've talked about that. You're going to start getting into the meat and potatoes. And the meat and potatoes, number one, is what are those core values or pillars? What are they? What are the 5 or 7 things that are important that every employee should know, everybody should embrace, regardless of department? And when you think about this, you want to make sure that these core values, such as I've worked in companies where the values were learn and grow, voice is heard, lean into challenges, embrace mistakes, things like that. So what are those 5 or 7 core values? You don't want too many, because then people don't know what to really focus upon, and they won't remember them all, frankly. So, 5 to 7 max, 5 is probably a good idea. you want to make sure they're really clearly defined. They're easy to remember because, again, if you're talking about 5 core values that people have to remember, you don't want to have too many. Inclusive of all departments, we talked about that. So the core values should be applicable to the HR department. It should be applicable to your customer service department. It should be applicable to everybody. Okay? Make sure these are aligned with the company results and the company strategies. The more alignment that a company culture and the core values and the pillars can align towards the company results, the company strategies, the company everything, the more buy-in you're going to get, and the easier it is to be able to roll this out and to implement and everybody to kind of gather around and support. Okay, this also needs to be led from the top. So it's important to make sure that some sort of C exec is involved in these discussions, because really this needs to be led from the top down. That's really where you get the buy-in, is the very top person in the organization is involved in these meetings, and they're supporting it. They know what this looks like. They're supplying their opinion as well. They're listening to other people, things of that nature. So it definitely needs to be led from the top. Okay. So you've identified maybe those 5 to 7 core values, and then it's important to list, like, what do some of those behaviors look like to support each of those core values. So these should be applicable, again, to all employees. If you can provide examples, that's great, because people want to know, how do I model this behavior for this culture? So when you provide examples, people obviously say, oh, okay, yeah, I understand. Okay, good. So they start embracing it. But the more that you give sort of a tangible example of what that behavior might look like, the better. So it's important when you're figuring out what that document is going to look like. That will be maybe be included as a training material. What are those core values? What are those behaviors or guiding principles, whatever you want to call them, that supports that core value? What does that look like? And make sure that you have some examples there, maybe 3 to 5 examples. And then what I've seen in other sort of departments, what they do, sometimes some departments will have their then department specific type of behaviors. I wouldn't encourage that being on a main document that's applicable to all employees, because that's going to cause confusion, obviously. But some departments may have some of their sort of sub behaviors that they want to be exhibited by their employees that are specific to their job duties. And that's fine, but don't put it on the actual main document. Again, your main document is for all employees. It's applicable to everyone. Everybody is exhibiting and modeling these behaviors that support the entire company culture. So the next thing to consider is, what's the collateral material? What kind of material or departments? What's that change going to look like? So are your recruiting efforts going to change? Does your website need to be updated with this new material? Is the interviewing process going to be different, such as adding in questions maybe for culture? Are the training materials going to change for existing employees, for new hires? How is the company literature and the signage around offices? How is that going to be updated? What thought needs to go into that? Are the company meetings going to change? I mean, obviously, if this is led from the top, there has to be discussion at all levels of the organization of this change and be reinforced continuously. So company meetings will probably change at all of the levels to make sure that the initiative and the company culture is discussed. How are the performance reviews going to change? Are they going to change? Is there going to be something included now for company culture and soft skills, things of that nature? Is there going to be some sort of recognition and rewards program around the company culture? So these are things to think about before you implement this change. Because again, when you're implementing, now you're talking about here are all the things that are changing. Now you may not have all the changes ready to go before implementation, but you can supply a roadmap to people as you make these changes. Before you implement, there are some certain things that you do need to have, such as the final document or of what those core values are going to look like, what those behaviors may look like, some sort of training material, because you need to think about, is this training going to be just a video? Is it going to be in person? What does this look like? And it's important to think about these things for implementation. So let's talk about implementation. And this is so critical. Implementation of any kind of change management is absolutely critical for the success of the change to happen. If you don't have a great implementation plan for any kind of change, it usually falls flat on its face. So it's important to know who's involved in this implementation. It's probably going to be people who are involved, obviously, in the project, such as the department heads, but who are some of the sub-leads? Do you need more sub-leads? Is it going to be the managers? How is this going to be rolled out? I mean, most likely, and this is what I would advise, is you roll this out from the top down to the next level, down to the next level, down to the next level, because obviously you want each of those levels supporting this change and understanding how long this process is going to take, and then they can help lead it to their own staff. So who's going to lead as we cascade down, and that's important to know that. Is the training and implementation going to be done via video, say by a C exec, or is it going to be done in person? You know, which department? Is it the training department that's going to roll this out? Is it the HR department? Is it just the leaders? What does this look like? What's the specific material are you going to have as you roll this out? Is it going to be just, the document? Is it going to include other items in this material when you roll it out? But you want to have something tangible so that people can take a peek at, and they can start sort of soaking it in what this change is going to look like. What does it mean for them, right? You want to make sure that you understand what the time frame of implementation is going to look like. So is it 1 month? Is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? I mean, it really depends on what kind of change you're making to your organization. If it's a big one with thousands of employees, this is going to take a while. I mean, you're talking about something that's really important to an organization, and company culture is critical. It is critical for associate engagement, for success, for productivity. It's a very important initiative. So these things usually take a good year. So expecting people to change in a month is probably not very realistic, but maybe it's a small organization. Maybe it is. You want to make sure that you're including all known changes when you're implementing. Like, what is that roadmap going to look like? What are some of the things coming down the road so that people know what is going to be changed as time goes on? Obviously, you want to make sure this is reinforced during meetings. So again, any kind of change management initiatives, not like they just roll it out and expect everybody to understand it and make the changes. This is driven by reinforcement. You want to avoid the flavor of the month kind of initiatives. Everybody hates those things, and usually the reason it becomes flavor of the month is because people roll it out, they expect everyone to change, and they never follow up. So it needs to be reinforced during meetings, during say little videos that are sent out, whether via emails, but it really should be reinforced during all levels of these meetings to make sure that people are embracing it, making sure that you're getting feedback from others about the changes. But one thing that with sort of company cultures, you want to make this fun. So doing things to make it fun, whether you have the tchotchke little items, or whether you have like little trivia. I've worked in companies where we had core value of the month, and we did something where everybody could sort of embrace and get around to exhibit what that core value might look like. So you want to make this fun. The more fun that you can make it, and the more that you get people pumped up around it, the more it's going to stick. And again, circling back and making sure that people are understanding the change, they're talking in the language of maybe around the change. They're saying, oh, I saw somebody who, exhibited this core value or whatever. And which brings up another key thing. Make sure that people are recognized and rewarded, however that looks like in your organization. Make sure that they're recognized and rewarded for exhibiting and modeling these behaviors that you want people to exhibit in the organization. So it can be a lot of fun. It does take time and people who are creative in these kinds of things. So when you have someone on the task force or someone on your initial group, make sure you have someone who's kind of creative and that fun person, because you're going to need somebody like that. And that might be the person who helps, like, okay, what do these little fun little deals look like in the organization so everybody can embrace it. So when you're implementing, until it gets to the point where it's sort of running itself, and you know, the leaders will know when this happens, when people just start talking and rolling off the mouth of what the culture is, you'll know that you don't need to keep reinforcing it. But this takes a while to get to that point. So your new hires, how you start off with a new hire is that maybe the recruiting process talks about the company culture. The interviewing process talks about the company culture. The onboarding talks about the company culture. Your tenure people already know about the culture, and they're helping to onboard the new people. So once you get to that point, it just starts humming. It starts working itself. It's fun. Everybody knows it. It's great. It's fabulous. And that's where, you know, people really understand that this is what our company culture is all about. And if it's a really healthy one, they protect a great company culture. They want to bring in people and orient them as quickly as possible, because when you have a great company culture, you know it, because most of us have something to compare it to. So the whole idea is to get to that point where it's productive, it's healthy, it's empowering, it's engaging. I mean, that's really what you want to work for, right? That kind of environment. So let's just wrap this up in a bow. So the key items, you know, needed for sort of a ground up change in company culture is a really diverse work group. All departments, all levels of employees. You want to have specific core values that are applicable to all employees. So it doesn't matter if you're a C exec to a frontline associate, those core values should be applicable to every single person in the organization. Including specific examples is always best, just so that people can understand what these behaviors are going to look like. Make sure that you have all the collateral materials and the departments involved, or what those changes are going to look like for those departments, and any kind of materials that may be needed. Make sure you have a strong implementation plan, so that people don't think it's just flavor of the month. You want to have something that actually takes a while. It's methodical, so that it's embraced, and it kind of gives people time to process this change and have fun with this change. It can be a lot of fun. You can do whatever you can get as creative as you want to have people to understand and embrace and get behind this sort of change. So have fun with it, get people pumped up, and don't expect, people to model it in a week. These things take time. Any kind of change management, they do take time until it becomes just sort of, second nature, and it's running itself. But once you get to that point, I just said it a couple of minutes ago, once you get to that point where you're working in a company where there's this awesome company culture, you just truly, truly, truly appreciate it, and you protect it, and you model it, and it's no problem. It's like everyone who comes in new, they feel it, they know it right out of the chute. It's something that is different for them, and they love it. So that's really what you're seeking to achieve, is whatever core values and behaviors you're trying to think of, you kind of want that sort of empowering kind of environment, and that highly engaged environment. That's where the magic happens. So I hope you enjoyed our video on creating a strong company culture. For additional resources or to schedule a session with me, please visit my website at www.yourimpoweredyou.com. You can email me directly at bman@yourimpoweredyou.com, or you can give me a call at 916-633-2555. And I thank you very much, and I hope you have a very empowered day.